Hello, hello. We are back for another week. Give it a few minutes.
I had to stop our intro. We got to do a new intro because my music was commercial. So that's womp womp.
All right. Well, I guess while we're waiting for some people to hop on, we can talk real quick that we are only 8 days away from our boots on the water.
Woo!
Lots and lots of stuff coming up.
All right, there we go. Sharing it out. We got a couple people popping on, y'all. Drop us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. Say hey. Ashley, go ahead. You ready to get this on the road?
Yep. So I am Ashley with Last Call Catfishing.
I'm Julie with Run and Gun Catfishing, and today we have
Captain Christian Moore with the Real Country Guide Service.
Welcome. We're excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Catfishing charter service up on the James River, based out of Hopewell, Virginia. I'm getting into the end of my fourth season. Went full time as a guide back in June of 2023. Catfishing wise, I've probably been catfishing since 2005, 2006 in terms of targeting like the trophy fish. I went with a coworker that I was working with, and he took me catfishing for the first time in the Dan River after big fish, and I've been hooked on them ever since. And grew up in North Carolina and ended up moving my family here to pursue a career doing it.
That's awesome. So are you full time? Is this your full time gig?
It is.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's great.
I was in the steel industry for about 20 years, but as of 2023, I'm full time fishing.
That's wonderful.
We've heard from several people that the James is one of those places you just have to try.
Yeah,
it is. You know, it's definitely a bucket list destination if you enjoy catching catfish. It's a very unique environment, being that it is tidal, and the not just the James, but all the rivers here, tributaries that jump into the Chesapeake Bay. It's a really neat system we have out here.
awesome. So do you have any memorable moments, like one of those stories that have stuck with you since you've been doing this?
As a guide, well, obviously with children, you know, being able to see a young adult, or a young kid catch a giant fish, you know, how it just empowers them and gives them this strong sense of confidence. Those are always really fun days on the boat. Had a young lady when I first got started. Her and her dad traveled around the country doing line cat class records for like the IGFA stuff. And in 2022, I believe, she set either 7 or 8 line class records on my boat, and she was Lady Angler of the Year for IGFA. So that's a pretty memorable one. That was really cool to get to see her accomplish that.
Absolutely. So what made you decide to go for the catfish over other species? Is it the size? Is it the bite?
Yeah, definitely the fight. I mean, in terms of freshwater species of fish that we have access to here on the East Coast, they're one of the most powerful things you can catch. I grew up just like we all did, you know, the gateway drugs, panfish, bluegill, brim, and then you get into bass fishing, crappie fishing. That stuff's fun too. I still enjoy it from time to time, but it would definitely be the size and the fight of the fish. And it's very challenging to me. You hear a lot of people say catfishing's easy, but we all know it's not as easy as you would think. So probably the challenge is one of the biggest things that's drawn me to it.
So,
Where are you guys? I'm sorry, I didn't do my homework. Where are you guys from? Where are your home waters?
So we are from Ohio, Central Ohio,
Okay,
but we fish like the Ohio River, the Muskingum River.
gotcha.
We wish that Wheeler was our home water.
Yeah, that's definitely a special place.
yeah. And I am in Western Kentucky, so we fish the Ohio River, Tennessee River mostly, but of course we have the lakes here, and we'll travel for fishing, of course.
So you're in Kentucky. I've recently seen a lot of stuff with your state in terms of conservation and your DWR department kind of cracking down on some stuff. That's exciting to see for the catfish there.
Absolutely. I was glad to see that. I know that Mike Abel and the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Western or the Kentucky chapter, they have been a really big force behind the scenes that a lot of people just don't know about. And it's a nationwide nonprofit organization. Typically, they focus on public lands, but when they saw what was happening in Kentucky, they shifted their focus because water is, public. These are public resources. So they were really excited to see that. And, we've Ashley and I have been trying to kind of be a voice for them a little bit more publicly, so that people can understand that this is what's actually like happening. This is what this organization is working to do. So yeah, it was really good to see that.
And what group was that, Julie? I didn't catch that.
It's Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and they are a nationwide. They have, I think, chapters in almost every state. They started in Montana 20 years ago, and almost every state has a chapter. So it's a really good organization to learn more about. And they are working really hard for conservation in Kentucky. So it's really cool.
Nice. I'll have to look into that.
Definitely. And I'll share it again on Run and Gun Catfishing as well, so that it'll be easier to find.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Timothy. Stephen said it's easy for Julie because Charlie is a catfish whisperer talking about fishing. He's always over here causing trouble, Stephen. So, let's talk about conservation in your area. So we normally talk a lot about where we're from, but we like to ask our guests their thoughts and where they're from.
So conservation here in the state of Virginia for blue catfish is something that's needed. I try to spread the word as much as possible in the catfishing community and with my fellow anglers here in Virginia. And we've got a heck of a fight going on right now, in that the majority of the state, and a lot of it is a derivative from Maryland waters. Kind of a little bit of the backstory on the blue catfish here in Virginia. Virginia Wildlife put them into the rivers back in the 70s. Prior to that, there was a big chemical spill on the James River back in the, I think, late 50s, and it pretty much rendered the entire river unfishable. It was shut down for 13 years to commercial fishing, to recreational fishing. No one was allowed to fish it. So they put the blues here to generate a recreational fishery, and it's done great. But one of the things that they didn't kind of foresee happening is the catfish during like the wet season, and you'd have real heavy rains that would shoot a stream of extremely fresh water out into the Chesapeake Bay, and this allowed the catfish to descend down into the bay, and they've kind of spread over to the eastern shore, and they've went up into the northern part of the bay and gotten in the Potomac River, and that's where they're not fans of them at all. You've got the blue crab up there that is a big part of their economy, and they are seeing where it's a threat to that potentially. Um, Most recently, some of the stuff that we have dealt with, uh, end of last year, they proposed a House bill here in Virginia where they were trying to relinquish the krill limit that we currently have to now you can only keep one fish over 32 inches per day. They were trying to eliminate that altogether, make it a catch-all. You can keep whatever you want. We fought that, was able to get some stuff in front of the governor, and he vetoed the bill. Great for us, but in doing so, he kind of, because he's getting, a lot of pushback from other government entities who are trying to make money on the fish. Basically, what it boils down to is they're trying to make money off of the fish, and they're chalking it up, saying that they're destroying the bay. But guys, I have studied so much data and talked to biologists and read lots of research papers. Probably the biggest problem in Virginia waters in the Chesapeake Bay area is water quality. I think that's something that should be addressed before we worry about blue catfish, but that's neither here nor there. But, basically what the governor said when he vetoed the bill is he told DWR, hey, you guys have got to come up with something here, whether it's a compromise or something to try to appease everyone, all the stakeholders and constituents here in Virginia. So what they're currently trying to do, and we go vote on this. Well, we don't get a vote, but we have an option for public comment on the 22nd of October and the 23rd. They're trying to make it to where the York River, the Rappahannock River, they're removing the 32-inch law. You can keep whatever you want. And on the James River, they're trying to make it to where above the saltwater line, it stays the same. The 32-inch law, you can only harvest one fish over 32 inches per day. Do I agree with that? No, but it's a good compromise on behalf of the state trying to appease everyone involved with the commercial industry and people who are trying to harvest them and take them to market and all that stuff. With that said, there's also another entity here in Virginia called VMRC. One of the things that they are most recently trying to implement is a commercial hook and line license. Now, what that would allow them to do, and what's really dirty about this portion of it is this hook and line license, the boundaries for it are only in the areas that DWR is trying to leave the 32-inch law the same. So essentially what that will allow them to do is if they generate these licensing, the commercial anglers will be able to come up into the reaches of the river that are protected by DWR, but their license will veto that and they can keep the fish. And something else that they could do, which would be a little bit of a gray area, say if they're running a trout line and they've got big fish on the boat that's got, hook, that caught on a hook. If they've got rods on the boat and that commercial hook and line license, they can just say they caught it on the fishing rod.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically what it boils down to here is greed, money. There's a lot of different things that I've learned allegedly that I'm not going to get into on the air, but it's really sad. It really is.
Yes, I agree. So do you have a lot of people, I'm assuming, that are commercially fishing to take the big ones for the reason of pay lakes, or are they taking them?
So I know a lot of the commercial fishermen. I'm out on the water 3, 4, 5 times a week. See them all the time. Have relationships with some of them. Talk to them at the ramp. They don't want to deal with the big fish. The fish markets don't want to take them, and that's one of the things that we've been pushing. Like, why are y'all trying to remove this 32-inch law? We're doing the fish. And finally in one of the DWR meetings that I attended, they said, well, apparently there's a market for pay ponds. So that is a thing. So I don't know what entity or organization or group of commercial fishermen are involved with these pay lakes, but I think that's the work they're trying to work around, to where they can harvest the fish legally and take them to pay lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we hear
Yeah.
that a lot. Like when we have the conservation talk here about them taking the fish out of our rivers locally, like the Ohio River and throughout Kentucky, they'll say, well, they come from the East Coast where they want them to be gone. Do you see that a lot? Like, do you see out of state boats a lot?
Guys, I've been seeing. I mean, this is no new thing. I mean, I have seen tanks on the back of pickup trucks. You know, when I grew up in North Carolina, fishing the Yadkin chain or Kerr Lake, I've seen it before. So a lot of it is out of state, probably. Yeah, the majority of it. A lot of Ohio plates. But you know, as we transition into legislation changes where some of this stuff is being made legal and it's a market for it, obviously there's some sort of revenue strain that folks here in Virginia they're sniffing out, and they're like, hey, we can make some serious money on this. So you'll probably start seeing it more internally if all these bills get passed.
Absolutely. So does your area have pay lakes there, just out of curiosity?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm sure there's probably like pay ponds, but none that I'm aware of that advertise having trophy catfish in them. I know there's a few in North Carolina. There probably is in Virginia. I'm sure there is. I know there's quite a few in West Virginia, and then when you get to Ohio, there's several. But in terms of around here, none that I know of that's within 250 miles of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So let's see. Y'all viewers, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to throw them out here for us. Christian is a well-known guide in the industry. Yeah, there is a bunch in Ohio. Steve was adding here that there's a bunch in Ohio. Hey, Adam, how are you doing? So in your area, what bait do you swear by? Because we got to plan our trip. We got to get over that way. So what's your go-to bait if you had to choose?
Well, 90% of, a catfish's diet here in this region, 80 to 90% of what biologists has told me doing diet studies is gizzard shad. Now, with that said, one of the things that's unique about this fishery is we get a lot of spawning fish that come into the rivers from the bay, such as the hickory shad, and we can use those for bait. There's a lot of things we can't use, obviously, like the herring we're not allowed to use, the American shad. They love that stuff, but we can't use it. So it's a seasonal thing. Like right now, kind of my go-to would be an American eel or a white perch. And then as the water temperatures start to drop after we get into the winter months when it gets cold, I'll switch back over to shad. And then coming out of the winter, getting into spring, I'll start messing with some of the hickory shad and perch again. But I mean, it's tough to beat a chunk of gizzard shad here on this river. You're always going to have a safe bet at catching a good fish if you've got some gizzard shad with you.
Good deal. And what's your favorite method for catching catfish? Do you anchor up, bump? Do you bump in your area? Pull boards?
But I recently went and fished a tournament on the Mississippi. We fished the mega bucks this year and got into bumping, and it was a lot of fun. And I had played with it some here on the river, but we kind of had to force ourselves to learn it out there. And I played with it a little bit coming back here, but anchor fishing, that's my bread and butter. That's what I'm doing 95% of the time. Sometimes when we have when the moon's really far from the earth and the tide doesn't fluctuate as much and the currents aren't as strong, I pull boards. That's fun to do, but primarily anchor fishing.
So what do you think about bumping on the Mississippi, since that's where you...
Yeah, man, I'm gonna tell you what, I've told so many people since I got back from that trip, the Mississippi makes the James River look like a little creek. It's a very powerful animal. really strong water, a lot of, but it's got some backwaters and stuff and slower moving water that you can fish. But when we were there, it's just so hot. And, it seemed like bumping was the technique that was producing, the better fish. We found some structure and some of those wing dikes. We caught some decent fish behind, but because it's different and, I've never done much bumping, it was a lot of fun. It was cool.
I'll tell you, you're not kidding about Mississippi being a different beast. Because I've bumped the Ohio. That's the only place I've ever bumped before, I guess. Yeah. And so when we went out there for a tournament, it was a Twisted Cat, maybe 2 years ago. Holy moly, nothing could prepare you for how fast it is.
It is insane. Like you always hear, like Mississippi's got powerful current. It's got powerful current. It's strong, but one of the things that got me the most were the tugboats. When the tugs go by, they have such massive amounts of thrust coming from behind those boats. They leave, 6-7 foot shockwave behind them, and it was neat. We'd be going up the river in the mornings before the sun would come up, and 4, 5, 6 miles, you start hitting a little bit of chop. You're like, great, here it comes. And then for like 2 miles, you're in 3, 4, 5 foot rollers. And it's like, man, this is no bueno.
Yeah. But it is definitely sketchy.
Yeah.
Yes. The part we fished was in Missouri. And I mean, we lost so many 16-ounce sinkers trying to bump up there. We started having to tape 2 8s together to keep it on the bottom. I mean, it was wild. Definitely a good time.
So what we learned is once you kind of figured out your boat speed with the river speed, it was easier to use a lighter weight instead of, get that was the big thing, matching the boat speed to the speed of the water that you were fishing. Preferably the lighter the weight you have on there, it seemed like the better. You would have more control, but you just had to make sure that the boat was moving at adequate speed so you could keep filling the bottom. Yeah. It took us probably, I'm going to say, probably by the end of the second day, we had a good feel for it and had it locked in pretty good the third day. But I'm excited to go back. That's my new mecca of catfishing that I want to try to learn, because we got our tails handed to us, and definitely looking forward to going back. It's a very neat fishery.
Yes, Charlie said the Mississippi will humble you. That's for sure. He was on running. It does.
Do you do a lot of tournaments?
I used to. I mean, primarily that's where a lot of my passion and a lot of the excitement for catfishing come from. Early on was fishing tournaments. I very rarely get to now, because once you become a full-time guy, and even before I went full-time, you're always fishing on Saturdays and Sundays, because that's when everybody's off work.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get to see my buddies and fish the club events that much anymore. But I always fish the KOJ. We got that coming up here in a couple weekends. I think we're 2 weeks out from that. I look forward to that tournament every year. It's a lot of fun.
Do you ever do the ice bowl?
Yep. That's actually the first, like, growing up doing like coffee can tournaments and stuff. That was the actual first organized catfishing tournament I fished. I think around, what was the first year I fished it? Maybe like 2016, 15, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, that's a fun one. That's a big one. They get a lot of boats down for that tournament.
Yeah,
Have you guys ever been there?
That this past year was the first time we've ever been out there. Just kind of like on a whim. We're like, should we go? Should we not go? It was freezing cold here. Like, wasn't it below zero when we left? Like 15 below zero. And he's like, this is stupid. Why are we even going? And we ended up getting like 5th or 6th place.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What year was it? 2 years ago?
It was just this past January.
Oh, the past one? Nice. How was I haven't fished it, I think, since 22 or 23. I need to get back down there, but I've just been so focused on growing this business and dedicating my time and energies to my clients. I haven't got to get back down there.
Yeah, it was cold. Like the river was or the lake was frozen. They had to bust it to put the fish back in. And a lot of the places that we were told by other people to check out, like, you couldn't get to them because they were frozen.
Now I'm remembering all this. I do remember the hell of ice that everyone had to deal with down there.
Yep. Yep.
Well, it sounds like you guys did all right. If you pulled out sixth place, that's awesome. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to get into competitive fishing or, on the flip side, guiding? You can go both ways or choose one, whatever.
Competitive fishing wise, I mean, one thing I would definitely encourage people to is always make sure you're trying to have fun. Make sure you're trying to have a good time. Don't get in your head too much, or I myself, this is me, the part, I'm telling myself this right now because I get really serious when I'm tournament angling. But sometimes the times I've struggled is when I've got frustrated and lost, touch with, hey, this is something that's supposed to be fun. So definitely have fun when you're doing it. Don't pay attention to other boats, what they're doing. You need to figure out what works for you and what your strong suits are, what you're confident in doing, because just because I'm really good at catching them a specific way doesn't mean that's the only way to catch them. There's multiple different ways to target these fish and get them in the boat. So you need to find a set of skills that is most favorable to you and how you like to fish. I think that's a big part of it.
Good
For
advice.
sure.
And then I guess we'll go ahead and do the guiding. So what's your advice to anyone that wants to be a guide? Anyone that wants to be a guide?
So I will tell you guys this. I honestly wish I hadn't waited so long to become a guide. It was always a confidence thing. Am I going to be, you're always worried you're going to be able to put fish in the boat. You're going to be able to put fish in the boat. I've been putting big fish in the boat for over a decade. It's just something I should have not waited to do. You don't want to jump into it too soon. You want to make sure you have in your head that you're going to put fish in the boat every day. And before you become a guide, you need to have the confidence and say, hey, I'm going to be able to put these people on fish day in and day out. Are you going to have a banner trip out every single day? No, absolutely not. It's just fish are fish. They go through patterns, and sometimes they're locked on and they're just not eaten. But you have to be able to learn the tricks of the trade to get those fish that aren't eaten to get them to eat and try to at least give the customer something to tug on. If you can do that, go for it, man. I mean, it's just one of those things where I had to, especially going full time, I always use this phrase, you got to cut the fear wire. Being a father of two and having bills and stuff, it's a big risk, just like anything out there, but big risk, big reward. You just gotta go all in and do it. But make sure you got the knowledge and you gotta have a little bit of startup money because you're gonna have equipment failure. You're gonna tear up motors, engines. When I my second year, I was down at Kerr. We were fishing the ice bowl, and the day before the tournament, I hit something in the back of Grassy Creek, and this was right after I started guiding, and it hit so hard it flipped my outboard motor up on the back of the deck of my boat, tore it up, pretty much totaled it where I had to get a new motor. So that was my second year of guiding. I trashed my outboard engine. That was no good. But we worked through it. We had to go finance a motor and all that good stuff. But be organized with your fishing. Time management is a big thing out on the water. One of the keys to my success is obviously always having fresh bait every day from our clients. I get up early every morning to go catch bait. I don't ever use frozen bait or bait from the day before. So that's a big part of your game that you need to have locked in really good is the bait situation, because that's, as you guys know, you fish. It's important to catch fish. You got to have good fresh bait.
Absolutely.
So that needs to be an aspect of it that you need to have locked in.
Yeah. And then what about the captain's license?
So with the captain's license, there's multiple ways you can get that. You can go to C school, do like a couple weeks program. I went with a C school that I done most of my learning at home, and then they proctor your final exam when you go in. But it took me probably right at 6 or 7 weeks, studying pretty hard just about every day after work. I would come home, jump on the computer. Uh, you've got to do, there's multiple sections to it. There's rules of the road, and then you got to do your safety and weather stuff, and then you got to do your charting. Um, then once you pass your exam, before you send off your application to the Coast Guard, you got to get a physical. You've got to get a transportation workers card, or for short, a TWIC card. Then when you get your guide's business, after you get your captain's license, don't forget to get your commercial insurance for your boat and take care of your business, always, all that stuff. And I would always recommend, if somebody gets into this, to get an LLC your business. That's a big important part of it.
These are all good tips. And it's the OUPV, or 6-pack, not a captain's license. There is a difference.
Yeah, so that's entry level. So what that is stating, if your vessel that you operate can take 6 passengers, it doesn't matter if it can take 6, 10, whatever. You can only take 6 people. I opted out of that and spent a little bit extra money and did a little bit of extra schooling and got my master's. I have a 25-ton master's. So that way, if I decide to, in the future, branch out into the Chesapeake and do some stuff out there in a bigger vessel that may be tagged for, 12 people, like a 40-foot dead rise or something out there doing cobia trips or striper trips, I could operate that under its max occupancy.
Well, that's cool.
Nice. Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
good to know.
that's definitely so what is your goals, your future goals? Kind of falls into that, right? Over the next few years, whether it's, your personal best.
There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of what ifs with that right now in terms of my fishing goals, because of what's going on with the catfishing here in Virginia. I mean, I'm a real fishy guy. I'll figure it out. If the catfishing here goes to the wayside, I will branch out into other species and find a way, because I can tell you what, I love working on the water. I've never loved something so much in my life, being able to get up every day and go work out on the river. So even if the catfish go away, I'm going to figure out some way, somehow, to figure out how to pay my bills out on the water, for sure. It would probably lean towards getting into cobia fishing or striper trips, something along those lines.
That would be cool. Very nice.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
There's a lot of talk in the catfishing community about tournaments, especially the larger tournaments and the conservation aspect of it. Julie and I have talked about it a lot,
I know where this is
just
going.
personally, because we don't really like to be negative. But what are your thoughts on it? Like, do you think that the big tournaments are doing a good job, or do you see that there's room for improvement? I mean, there's always room for improvement, but
There's definitely room for improvement, and I would encourage tournament directors and organizations who are having some of these tournaments in the warmer months, where the water temperature is 86, 87 degrees and above. There's a lot of studies on post-catch mortality rate, just not for catfish, but other species of fish. Just because they swim away at the scales does not mean they make it. Side note, one of the things you can do to help your fish sustain life after you've released it, put a digital thermometer on your live well, especially when you're fishing in the summertime. That way you can kind of keep the water temperature in the live well close to what his natural environment is. Because I see a lot of people, they'll ice down their live well, they'll make it colder, they're throwing bottles in there. If you get it too cold, that's the same thing. They're still going to get shocked when you release them and put them back in the water. So it's something to definitely keep an eye on. But I'm not going to name any names of any tournament series, but definitely I think that's what we need to look at. Some summertime events, there needs to be a little bit more research involved on behalf of the organizations. And it's out there. There's a lot of studies on post-catch mortality rates for different species of fish, including catfish. So I would just encourage them to look at that. I know a lot, like, perfect example, Trey Thorpe, he runs our tournament series here. the Title James Catfishing Club, he has opted out of summertime fishing tournaments this upcoming season in the warmer months, just for longevity and conservation of the fish. And I've seen a lot of other series start to kind of trend in that direction too. So there are people who are cognizant of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what you guys were hitting at, or is there some other stuff going on out there that I don't know about?
No, that just your thoughts. It's not targeting anybody or anything. Just because we've interviewed with Alex and Liz and talked about conservation and things, and we've kind of tried to raise awareness with oxygen, and those kinds of things. Yeah. So no, this isn't like a heated or loaded question.
No, just your thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to go. They do a really nice job on their tournament series. I would love to go fish one of their events. Just being able to see it outside or looking in on social media. It looks like they have some great events. A lot of fun. Definitely want to try to make it one of those one of these days.
Yeah, it is. I've had fun, and they're just both so nice, and they've just always been really like cool to talk to. And Alex is always like, "Yeah, get in there, come on, get in there with your," because I like to live stream weigh-ins, and so he just treat me like one of the guys, just to be a part of everything and not act like I'm in the way. Which everyone's been really nice about that anyway. But so they've just been really cool to us, and so we're thankful for them. They do a good job putting it on.
I think it would be cool. A lot of some of the, I think a lot of fish care knowledge when you get to some of these bigger events, it's assumed that the angler knows what to do, but maybe at the captain's meeting, they have a little bit more, like, talking about oxygen. Oxygen's a great thing in the summertime, but you can also give them too much oxygen and burn them up. So
there is a way to do that. There is parameters. That's a good point. And so, that would be nice to have that education during the captain's meetings. That's a good idea, a good thought. It's not like it's expensive to do. If you've already got all the rods and the reels and the boat and the rod holders, you can get the oxygen. But, being knowledgeable is an important aspect of that as well.
Oh, for sure.
What do you think the role for anglers in conservation, how do you see it evolving? Do you think that, more people should kind of speak up, or more than just sharing out posts on Facebook? How do you see the role of the anglers evolving?
The age old, what's the age old saying? Actions speak louder than words. I would like to see more representation, and this is, if any of my local anglers, this is going to you guys, showing up at these meetings. Sometimes it gets frustrating, myself and a few other individuals being the only ones at these meetings. It's, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, you got to have a lot of squeaks to get the grease in terms of catfish conservation, especially where we live. It's great that people have went on these online platforms, whether it's DWR or the local legislation when we're fighting that bill, and they're doing the virtual comments, the online comments. That's great, and we all appreciate that. But maybe some more in-person involvement. But they may, at the same time, they make it tough. These government entities, they have these meetings obviously when everybody's working, and it's tough to take a day off, at the last minute, and tell your boss 2 weeks before this meeting that they just announced, "Hey, I got to go say something about catfish at this meeting." They're not going to let them off work. So I get it. A lot of jobs, but probably just more involvement, publicly at the meetings would be awesome to see. And I think that would make a bigger impact. Ultimately, I would love to see the species be made a game fish. That would fix a lot of stuff. We're nowhere even close to accomplishing something like that, but that's something I'm going to work towards, until I die, trying to make them a game fish. But will I succeed? Who knows? But I'm never going to give up.
It's a really good point. It'd be good to see that happen for sure. Let's see.
Yeah, but
This is
you're
some
right
good
about like
questions,
the
Kayla.
squeaky wheel gets the grease because like they were trying to do a catfish summit in Ohio last December and they ended up canceling it. Like you had to be selectively like asked, like invited, and they said that they
What?
didn't
What?
have enough
I'm sorry.
interest. The
What was it,
ODNR
Ashley? A catfish?
Ohio
What?
Summit where they
Uh
bring in
huh.
like anglers and tournament directors and even some pay lake owners and stuff and like just try to like talk to everybody about what's going on and how we can like move forward.
Gotcha.
And
Hmm.
we do a veterans organization, a nonprofit to take veterans catfishing. So we got in on that. We got some tournament directors in on that, and we were all excited just to go hear what they had to say. And then when it came down to it, they said they didn't have enough interest. Like there wasn't enough people that were willing to come and listen to
Hmm.
them. So it's like you're saying, like you have to do more than just sit on Facebook and complain about people not doing anything. If you're not willing to come and listen to what they have to say, they're
Yeah.
not going to make any changes.
So, like 3 years ago, I was approached by some people in the fishing community and at DWR to join this thing called, what's the name of that group? It was a work group, um, but basically it was sanctioned by NOAA. NOAA was over the entire project. Um, I think myself and one, two, three or four other individuals, kind of represented the recreational angler side of things. And then you had like a gambit of all different sorts of people from all different walks of life and government entities. Probably it was like the three or four of us and like 60, 70, 80 people who want to get rid of the catfish. So
Mm-hmm.
we try. I just recently. I was the chair for that group representing the recreational anglers, but it was honestly a waste of my time because no matter what I would say or what I would do, that group of people was not wanting to hear it. So I stepped
Mm-hmm.
away from it. And as sad as that sounds, it just wasn't making any sense. I'm more so diverting my energy towards the actual rules and regulations with DWR right now. That's what I'm focusing my time on because it was a waste.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yep.
So, are there any common mistakes you see that anglers are making when handling catfish, big fish in general? I know that we kind of mentioned water temperatures, but is there anything else that you commonly see that might cause issues with their survival?
Yeah, especially you never know what shape a fish is in when you're catching it, especially for instance post spawn fish, specifically the males. The males go several weeks without eating uh, during the spawn. They clean the nest out. The lady comes in, lays the eggs, they fertilize them, and then she checks out. She's gone. She goes back to eat and she goes doing her thing. But the male, he's hanging out, protecting the nest up until that fry is ready to leave and they roll out. And sometimes that could be 4 or 5 weeks. So the water's hot that time of year. That's why another reason I don't offer. I'm one of the only a lot of the I've had guides around here ask me, why don't you offer trophy trips in May and June? Well, it's because I'm a conservation based angler. I don't want to target the big fish when they're weak. I'll do eater trips. That's what I advertise and do striped bass trips during that time. But that's definitely something people should be mindful of. You know, post spawn, the health of the fish, especially the males, how we're handling them. I've spoke with biologists a little bit about this and their anatomy. Suspending a big fish, by its jaw, you could separate some of their internal organs from that lining and cause some damage there. I've heard people say over the years you can dislocate their jaw, and I remember early on, handling big fish. Uh, you can feel them pop sometimes when you pick them up and don't support their bellies. So I see that a lot. really, I get this cringing feeling when, when I'm watching some stuff on Facebook Reels or TikTok, and they're just yanking the fish around and jerking on them. But
Yeah.
handling is a big one. Definitely something that I see. I would like to, probably should do some educational videos, but I think someone who has a large following on a platform such as TikTok should do a couple of those videos. That would be huge. My following's not that big on any of the social media platforms, but somebody's got like several 100,000 followers. I think that would be really awesome for them just to do a segment on fish care and fish handling.
Yeah.
Not burping the fish. That's a big one. When you catch a fish deep, and I used to think it was only catching them in really deep water. That's not necessarily true. I've caught fish in 20, 25 foot of water that needed to be burped. The telltale sign is looking at the fish, its physique when you pull it out of the water. You can tell the difference between an expanded swim bladder and a full belly, to where they've been eating a lot. The belly is more towards the bottom part of the fish, further back towards the tail when they're full of food. But when that swim bladder is expanded, in between that belly section and their bottom fins, you can feel it. It's a hard, lump of air right there. And that's something people should be mindful of. I've done a couple instructional videos on how to burp catfish over the years. I think that's a big one that a lot of people aren't even aware of. Like, well, I'll be on guide trips and do it a lot in the summer. And I just did one this week, and the lady was like, "What the heck are you doing?" Like,
Why are you doing that?
I got to expel his swim bladder so he can, swim back down. And, you educate them on it. And it's just like this eye-opening thing. Like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And it's not just catfish. There's a lot of other species of fish that you can do it to. But another thing a lot of people don't know is that a catfish is one of the only creatures or fin fish that swim in water that can, obtain negative buoyancy and sit on the bottom. So when they're down there chilling and you throw a piece of bait in front of their mouth, hook them, their swim bladder was almost deflated, and then that pressure change bringing them up so quick swells it really quickly. And most of the time, if you play them out and take your time bringing the fish up, they'll burp on the way up, and you can watch for the bubbles. But that's one of the things definitely I always try to educate people on, especially the women.
Your tube that you use for burping them, do you drill holes in the sides?
I've done it both ways. I've got actually one of each on the boat, but normally the one that I've got like I think it's probably 3/4 inch pipe. No, it's not 3/4, probably 1/2 inch. I found that a small, I used to use a 3/4 size PVC pipe. And that can be a little bit too much on some of the, smaller fish, that 15, 20, 25, 30 pound fish. So I went down to like a 1/2 inch and just beveled the ends of it. And if you hit that spot just right, it'll deflate them. Sometimes I'll have to get out the one that's got the holes in it, but I always do. I haven't had to get it out in a long time. Most of the time. So to answer your question, short answer, no, I don't have holes, but I have used them before.
Gotcha.
We have another comment that says even putting fish down on the hot boat decks can hurt them. And that's a thought that I never really even considered. But imagine when we walk on the boat, how hot it is with our feet. So he lets the net drip and wet the deck for a few seconds before setting them down. That's Creole catfishing. So he's down in Louisiana, and that's hot.
Yeah, for $6.
Yeah,
Man,
that's next.
when we went and fished that Mississippi tournament, I have never fished such hot conditions in my life. So yeah,
it was miserable.
It was the heat index. I remember the first day we went fishing. We got up early, went to the store to grab some gas and a couple drinks. And the lady looked at us like we were crazy. She's like, "Are y'all going fishing?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "The heat index is going to be like 115 today, right?" I'm like, "No, but oh well."
Okay. Yeah.
Too late.
But yeah, that's a great point. I actually the boat that I have now, I got with a company out in Oregon, Hooker Boat Works, and they pretty much let me build the thing from scratch and design it exactly how I want to. And I've got a fish box in the floor in the back, and the lid to that is a white lid that's pretty good size. You can put it will easily fit a good 60, 70 pound fish on it without them having to burn their belly section. So that's where I lay them when the back deck's really hot, because it doesn't get as hot as the diamond plate, the aluminum.
That's good. That's really cool. Yeah, and the
We
other thing that
also-
go ahead.
Go ahead, Jules.
You're fine.
We talked to one of the marine biologists when we were talking about all of this like tournament stuff at the beginning of the year, and they said that within like 3 to 5 minutes of a fish being out of water, it starts to cause brain damage for them. Their ability to being able to function, to swim off, and to be able to live a life in the water. So that's something that we try to we are definitely like cautious of when we're fishing. Quick picture if they're big enough and back in the water, so they're not laying on the boat for like minutes at a time while you're taking pictures or doing your lives or whatever. Like, get the fish back in the water. Don't just leave them laying there.
That's a very good point, Ashley. That's something you see a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
Someone will catch a big fish, and they'll post 15 different angles and different photos of the same fish. You're like, man, how long did you keep it out of the water getting all these cool
Yeah.
shots of the fish? Like, it's awesome to be proud of our trophies and to accomplish a goal. But, at the end of the day, that's why I'm such a conservation-based angler. I have seen firsthand fisheries get ruined by man, and I know the importance of it. I have 2 daughters. I enjoy taking them fishing and getting to see them catch big fish. But if I'm blessed enough and I have grandchildren one day, I would love to take those grandchildren fishing to catch these big fish. And if we don't get conservation minded as a group, as a catfishing industry, I think that needs to be at the forefront of everything. Tournaments are awesome. Designing boats, new tackle, coming out with new equipment and leading edge stuff that helps put more fish in the boat. Those are all great things. But if we let conservation go to the wayside, it's going to be all of it's going to be a waste. We're not going to have any fish to catch.
Exactly. These comments are cracking me up. You guys can't see them, but they're kind of being funny over here. One thing though I was going to say before is Creel also said, I popped it up, but the way slings made for carp work excellent for big fish, and we did use that. We've got one at CatCon for that purpose. We would use our dip net, but we wanted to get the sling as well, and that was really handy to have. It's just a little bit easier to weigh that fish in that versus the whole big net.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good way.
Right.
To weigh the fish versus using your grippers. Just to keep them healthier.
Yeah, anything that can basket the fish. A weigh sling is optimal, but sometimes they're hard to find or people can't afford them. One thing I used to keep on the boat, just purchase a good, like a replacement net for a big landing net. You can use that as a weigh sling, and it works just fine. If you can't afford one, that's a good substitute to weigh a fish. I'm tall. I'm 6'4", so I'll leave them in the landing net. Unhook the handle from it and weigh them right there in the landing net.
That's what we do too. Or we'll flip the net, because you know how big the net is. You can flip it down and take that other side, and that really helps if you're vertically challenged.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get where you're coming from. But yeah, that's that slings are definitely something that will aid in the fish's ability once it's out of water. And if it's a fish, like some of these giant fish that you see getting caught, I think it's a really great idea to have a sling to weigh them. 80, 90 plus pound fish. I think it's, I have a sling on the boat. I very rarely ever get it out, but if we boat a fish that's, over 80 pounds, we'll get the sling out and take care of it.
Do you have a fish?
Yeah, he's got 2 or 3 on right now. He's trying to deal with. I'm just sitting here laughing, like this is fun, just watching him.
Where you guys fishing, actually?
It's just a little lake close to our house. It's mainly a channel cat lake. It's called Dillon Lake.
Okay.
But you can usually come out here and catch all of the channels you want to catch. And yep, he sure is.
It's not too
Like
bad.
Charlie's kind
Yeah.
of place. Fish out.
Hey, channels are fun. You know, they don't get as big as blues, but pound for pound, they put up a good fight.
Yeah. So there's this tournament, well, Sandusky Bay up in northern Ohio.
Yeah, I've
And
always wanted that. I've heard a lot about that area and channel
Yeah.
catfishing.
We went up there for a veterans event in June, and we caught, I think fishing was from 7 to 1, and we caught 45 channels. Like our vet, we were just handing him poles like all day. Like he would hardly get
That's
one
super
in, and we're like,
fun.
here you go, here's another one. It's
That's
crazy. Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Another good one.
I heard that splashing around, and I'm like, oh, look at fish.
Yep.
How long have you guys been catfishing?
He's been catfishing most of his life. We've been together for 10 years, and that's how we started dating. Like we'd come out here to this lake when we'd get off work and we'd fish all night. Sometimes we'd bring the tent and throw it up on the side of the river. Because this goes into Licking River if you go back far enough. And so this is where we would go. And then 3 years ago we started going to the river. And then we learned what the river was like, and we're like, that's way more fun to catch bigger fish.
Yeah,
And
sure.
and then we actually had a bass tracker, and we took it down to Alabama, and we were going down to Eufaula, and we stopped at Wilson Lake there at Rogersville,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
he wanted to check out Wilson, and we got like 7 miles down, and the motor blew up. So on the way home, we bought a puller craft, and we had it for a year and a half, and just got our Sea Arc in November. So like all last year, he hit tournaments pretty hard. This year, he's had to do more work, so we haven't got to do as many tournaments, but we still
Sure.
go out when we can.
That's awesome. Yeah, my first catfishing boat was like a 15-foot John boat with a rod rack man out of 2x4s. So it's been cool to see the transitions over the years, the different
Mhm.
rigs, how the equipment's changed, how I think just the industry as a whole, it's really it's fastly growing. You know, it's getting
Mhm.
more and more attention every year, which is exciting. Um, but I would, like we were talking about earlier, I would like to see conservation be uh, more pushed to the forefront of this species of
Yes.
fish. Because when you guys approached me about doing a podcast about conservation, I was like, absolutely, that's great. Thank you guys for doing it. It's awesome.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it would be good to see more the bigger names. You know, Ashley and I are pretty small fish in a big pond, so to speak, of catfishing. But we figured, well, she asked me to start doing the podcast with her, and after CatCon actually, and so that's kind of how this whole thing got started. But yeah, it would be nice to see more. And because the thing is it doesn't have to be in a negative way. I mean, really, we don't attack people, we don't attack groups. It's not, oh, all pay lakes need to be shut down. That's not how we feel. But running them ethically would be the ideal situation to prolong the inevitable of what is happening with commercial fishing, the way that it's growing. So kind of trying to find the common ground with peaceful education is our goal.
Absolutely. I always it irritates me when I see catfish anglers who are tournament anglers, or they've just been catfishing a long time from a boat or from the bank, hazing someone at a pay pond, because chances are, this is how I look at it, they're just fishing just like we are, and they don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been how they learned to fish for them. Maybe their dad took them to a pay pond when they were young. There's no sense in sending any type of negativity or an aggression in that way. You can educate them. Perfect example. I had 2 guys down from West Virginia on the boat Tuesday. They fish pay ponds up there, and it was a real eye opener for them, catching the fish in their natural habitat in a river and river current. and they were really impressed. And some of the things like fish health, a lot of these big fish, when they get put in these pay ponds, you've seen pictures where they got the lesions and stuff all over them. He's like, yeah, I see that from time to time. What's that from? I was like, well, you take a creature that's lived its entire life in this huge environment, and then put him and a bunch of his buddies in this smaller environment. One, you're going to have water quality and oxygen issues. Two, they put some of the ponds put copper sulfate in there to agitate the fish and get them to eat more, which that in turn burns their skin up, and you'll see all these lesions and stuff. And it was like an eye opener. And I'm like, really? They do that? And I'm like, yeah. So I always try to do it in a positive way. Anytime I cross paths with someone who fishes pay ponds, I don't pick on them for it. I don't talk down to them. I just try to educate them best I can. I think that is very important, not to try to.
That is how Charlie started. I mean, we've talked about it a couple times. He grew up where, his parents would take him to the pay lakes and stuff. And, I feel like there's been a time that it wasn't like it is now. And there are several that are still ran by farm-raised fish. And, that is, I think, a great thing for communities. But then, it kind of evolved into a beast in some areas and different pay lakes and things like that. But, that's how he started. And when he and I met, he was into rodeo. He quit fishing so much and was riding bulls since he was 13. And when we met, but he and some buddies would go down there, because there's one local kind of to where we were living, and he had me go, and there was a fish near the bank. You could see it. He casted bait in front of it, and he had me reel it in, and I was like, this is awful. Like, I grew up fishing in a stocked pond at my house, so it just drug in. It didn't swim. He's like, I've never made anybody unhappy about catching a 30-pound fish. And I was like, I didn't feel like catching fish, I just, no. So, I'd go because he was there every once in a while and things like that. But we didn't have a boat back then. We didn't have like a spot on the bank back then and things like that. Well, fast forward, I'd say probably 4 years after that, we got a boat, our first boat. It was a center console. It was a nice size, but anyway, we had moved down to Kentucky from Ohio, and it was boring. He didn't know where the fish were. We had 2 little kids and no bimini, we had no top. It was hotter than hot. And so I kind of quit fishing altogether. Then, he started going more and more, and he traveled to Santee Cooper for his yearly guys trip with his uncle and his dad, all them. And then he started going to Wheeler and started showing me these monster fish that he was catching. And I was like, that's really cool. Like, good job. A picture doesn't really tell a story, but, so after a while, he was like, I really want to get a new boat. And that Triton being so flat bottomed, it beat your back. The kids and I would go out on the lake with him, and it just felt dangerous. So he's like, I want to get a new boat. And I said, no, I didn't even want the first boat. But I said, if you get a boat, that's on you. I'm not going to help you do all this, because I'm usually the girl that does all that stuff for him. And he brought her home, and I was like, okay, this is really nice. So anyway, I started fishing with him. January will make 3 years. So 2026 will be 3 years that I started fishing with him. And that's kind of my story. Is he's like, I really want to take this serious. I already had a background in making content for home things in the home decor and whatnot. And so I was like, all right, I'll help you. And so Run and Gun Catfishing was born. And that first time I went out, it was January. Our daughter went with us, and we caught a 65 and a 72. And I was hooked ever since.
That's a good day. It's definitely something to hooked on.
Yep. So, I mean, even back then, pay lakes, it's nothing against a pay laker, but if you're fighting for something and you see what's happening, you gotta, part of you has to, once you get educated, has to be like, man, this pay lake isn't it,
That's one of my, like, when I'm talking to some of these people here at DWR, at VMRC, it's one of the things that's most annoying. They don't see anything wrong with taking an in-state natural resource, shipping it out of state and letting someone else make money on it.
That's what's crazy.
They don't see like, and we've shared like DWR even went to the extent they did a angler creel survey. They've been doing it for the past 2 years, and they've had representatives at boat ramps every time someone would come in and put their boat back on the trailer and say, "Hey, what were you out fishing for? What did you catch?" And that in like it was like an 8-month period. Just at one of the ramps on the James, they had questioned 850 anglers or something like that. And I want to say it was close to 60 or 70% of those anglers were catfishing. That's a lot of revenue just in that time frame. And then you add in the tournaments and the tackle shops. And, when people come from out of town to fish tournaments, they're staying, you got lodging, you've got food, shopping. It brings in so much revenue to the state, and they're blind to it. They're looking for a quick buck, and that's what irks me the most about it.
Yes, and that is absolutely true. Creel also mentioned, so of course he's in Louisiana. Luckily, we don't have pay lakes, but the pay lake suppliers are literally being brought to my front yard to take our fish, and that's the thing. It is the trophy pay lakes and the commercial fishing for them. It's a lucrative industry, I guess, but that's where conservation is so important, because the turnover that occurs at these trophy pay lakes, we all know the turnover is just so quick where they have to go find more. And regenerating a trophy sized catfish takes decades. And that's where the problem lies. A trophy buck can regenerate in 3, 4, 5 years. A trophy bass, I don't know. I don't know much about bass and other fish, but I'd say it only takes a couple years to regenerate a trophy bass. I don't know. But a catfish cannot do it.
Probably like 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So that's where the problem lies, and that's where conservation, especially of the trophy, is so important.
And it's important for us to bring people like you on that are, in a completely different area than where we're used to. And a lot of our audience is, local to us, or, people that do tournaments and stuff. And you can see this isn't just an Ohio issue or a Kentucky issue. Like, it's literally everywhere. And everybody needs to be conservation minded, regardless of where you're at.
There needs to be a nationwide entity that supports catfishing that is solely for conservation.
Yes.
That doesn't get affiliated with anything else involved with the industry. It's just conservation based. BASS did it, I think, back in the 70s or whenever they started. I think it needs to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would take, and I think it would be for any of the watersheds that have catfish. I mean, I guess pretty much every state in the continental United States has some species of catfish, whether it's a bullhead, a white cat, a blue, a channel, flathead, whatever. Couple representatives from each state, and yeah, I would love to see that happen in the next 5 to 10 years. That would be amazing to have something on a national level that was just conservation based. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
That would be great. Well, you guys,
That's got last name written all over it. Julie and Ashley, y'all could start it.
could you imagine? I don't think I'd know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, I've had people sitting in your shoes say the same thing to me before. And I'm like, and that's part. I don't want to use the word problem or use the word but, because I try not to use that term. But at the same time, that's a lot of it. There's just no one willing, because we're all busy with work, raising a family, fishing. It's especially this day and age, it's a tough juggling act.
I think for me, my thought is, where do you even start? And that's a whole nother question,
And it can be so controversial.
I don't really care about the controversial part of it. It's just basically how do you, I mean, we got a podcast, so I guess we've started there, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just, I don't even know what it would take to even.
So funding, you got to get funding first. You know, I had a, you guys tell me what you think about this idea. I was talking to a close friend of mine a while back, and I was, you know, he was like, well, something like that, you're going to need some major funding. What if you generated a membership for catfish anglers and they pay their membership fee? But when you pay that fee, there's a complete 100% transparent website that has how much money this entity has in the bank. Like, and every time someone joins up and pays their membership fees, they real time see the bankroll go up. And then say we reach out to Captain Christian Moore in Virginia. He's fighting catfish, and he's want to get a lawyer who specializes in General Assembly law to take a look at some of the regulations there. Okay, this lawyer's fee or retainer is going to be X amount of dollars, and then it goes on a ledger on the membership thing, and you see the monies leave the bank. Like, I think if you had a transparent situation like that, to where all the members could see what, you know, their money's going towards, you would get a good buy-in. How do you do that? I don't know, but I would feel a lot more comfortable as a catfish angler seeing my money's going towards good things that are for conservation, and I would be more willing to pay my annual membership fee every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It takes so much money. That's what we've learned from the BHA, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
are a national organization, so they've got lobbyists and they've got all of these people, you know, that they're fighting this conservation fight with. But it takes money, you know, so that's why they do like the events that Julie and I attended to help raise money so that they can continue to fight this fight, because it's not free.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the
I
lobby
got
is
I got a
so
big
expensive.
taste. I got a big taste of this, you know, as when they had that House bill, and I got involved with local legislation, which, guys, government, you know, we've all said government's crooked, but God, you don't know how crooked it is. When I got involved with some of this stuff, you know, luckily enough, my kind of foot in the door, if you will, or my ace in the hole, I just so happened to take a couple years ago some of the governor's staff fishing. And I remember that day they were on the boat. When we got back to the dock, I could tell they were in politics. They didn't, you know, say, hey, we work for such and such. But when they left, they was like, hey, we really appreciate you. You're awesome. We got some stuff in the truck. And obviously it was some of the campaign memorabilia for the governor. And it just dawned on me, you know, at the beginning of this year when I was fighting all this stuff, I was like, hey, I met such and such. I went back through my pictures on my phone to the day, because I couldn't remember their names, but I remember their faces. And I went back through my photos, and then went to my calendar. I was like, okay, this is the guy's name, and called him up. And he was actually willing to help. And he's the one that put me in touch with some of the governor's staff. But at the same time, you know, we're talking about money and getting involved and what it would cost. Some of the things here that are going on, I've spoken to a lawyer about. We have a case. It is a fightable case. But he used the term, it is going to take a large amount of money. So it would be in your best interest to find others who want to get involved with this to help fund it. And at the end of the day, the dollar wins with everything we fight in terms of regulations or anything in the government. So that's where you start. You said, I don't know where to start, Julie. That's where you would start. We'd have to get funding to get any ground.
All right,
And we
y'all.
all have to be on the same page. Like, I feel like in the catfish world,
Yeah.
there's so much division. Like, we've talked about that with others on this show and like in private. You know, like, you've got tournament anglers that are, you know, blaming, like, we're all blaming commercial fishermen, and then you have like recreational that's blaming tournament fishing. Like, everybody has to be on the same page that we want to protect our trophy fish. You know, like, as a cat fisherman, like everybody has to want that. You can't just have like 3 different groups of people fighting against each other, because when you go to the state house and you're fighting against each other, then they don't take you seriously.
Exactly right. Very, all good points. Human nature is it's a very predictable thing.
Yep.
Well, what are we going to call ourselves, guys? The Three Musketeers?
I was thinking Turning Point Catfishing Association had a nice ring to it.
I love it.
I like that. So far, you're winning.
Yep.
Yeah. I just gotta find. I gotta get that funding.
Yes. Well, we know some people that are definitely that want to help and want to be a part of, are willing to help on certain ends and whatnot. But
Absolutely. Moving forward in the future, when you guys have any questions or you've got some conservation based stuff going on and you want some input, by all means, please reach out, or vice versa.
yes, and lawmakers and politicians that may be watching this, whether it's now or on the replay, let us know if you want to go fishing so you can see why it's important to us for conservation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, because that's good to have on your side, is people that can also make change and to see why it's important.
We did start a page called The Last Run to post all this conservation stuff on, and like our intent when we created that page was anybody from any state, any location, if there's conservation stuff going on, post it so people know that it's happening. Like when you guys had the Virginia thing going on, that was before we did this. But that kind of stuff, like share it on there so we know what petitions are going on that we can help with.
I'm glad you said that, Ashley. Actually, I don't know who emailed me previously yesterday with this link, but
That was
whoever
me.
did, could you email me your plugs to some of these, like your pages and stuff, and that backwoods group? That would be awesome.
Yep, because there are people out here doing more than we are. We're just trying to give a public voice and, kind of help encourage other people that do have a voice making content, also share, this kind of stuff, education or information where it's actually going to matter, not, just, again, I see a lot of people share out pictures from different things to kind of get people talking, but that's not really helpful. All that's doing is kind of giving free promotion to those places, maybe, telling your explanation as why you think that, conservation is so important. And the tips that you shared today, that kind of stuff is so helpful to bring awareness to other people, because this industry is going to continue to grow, but it's going to grow on every front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, look, we got so many people ready to help join us. I know a pretty decently influential director from Indiana who'd be a part of it, even though his time is super limited. We got Louisiana that would want to be a part of it. So I know there's people that care, that are limited on time, in certain ways, but would be willing to help in other ways. So we
But I think
appreciate
this is important. We should continue this conversation, get more people on board with it, and see where it goes.
Yeah. Get me anxious about something else.
So something you don't know about Julie, but see how she has her hair down like this? She gets really red. So when she says like she doesn't know where to start, she gets really nervous. So she has to.
Tie my neck. Who, me, Steven?
I get it. It's going to be a big undertaking, a lot of responsibility, but it takes a village. It's definitely nothing a single person could do, or even a group of people. Like it has to be on a net, like you said early. It's got to be all hands on deck. A lot of people, a lot of representation from businesses, tournament anglers, bank anglers. It doesn't matter what how you're catching them or where you're catching them from. We just need to all come together and, hey, we need to protect these fish. So.
Right. Yep.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Steven, I'm sorry. I guess I'm saying words and I'm not enunciating very well. So I don't know. I guess the playback, I'll just not watch it.
I hate hearing the sound of my own voice. Sorry.
Me too. It's hard to get like over that. Oh, dip net and tips. I guess it sounds like something else, is what he's telling me. Oops.
But we've had you on here for quite the time, so we better let you get back to
Yeah,
what you're doing.
I gotta get up at 2 a.m. So
Oh
Ugh.
goodness! But we
Well,
really appreciate you being
Yeah,
on.
I appreciate you joining us. It's been really
Yeah.
good to have you on.
Yeah, this has
yeah,
been a good
thanks for
one.
having me, guys. I appreciate it. Let's we'll stay in touch and reconvene on some catfish conservation stuff later in the year. Look forward
That
to it.
sounds good.
All right, bye guys. See ya.
See
See
you.
you later.